Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to unlock one of the absolute best techniques for writing Python code that's clean, organized, and super powerful. Seriously, if you've ever felt like your projects are getting a little messy, this one's for you. Okay, let's jump right in.
You know that feeling, right? You start a project, it's going great, and then suddenly you're scrolling through this massive wall of code, just trying to figure out what's what. You start copying and pasting the same few lines over and over again. It's a super common problem. But don't worry, there's an absolutely brilliant solution.
All right, first up, coding with building blocks. To really get this, we're going to start with something super simple.
Check this out. We've got a function here called drawStars. Its one and only job in the entire universe is to draw 3 stars on the screen in a very specific fixed spot. It's simple, it's focused, and you know what? It works perfectly. But what happens when we want to do more than just that?
And that brings us to our next section, meet the helper function. This is about to become your new secret weapon. Think of it like this. Instead of having one person try to do everything, you hire a specialist to help out.
So let's say we want to show a message and our stars. We can make a new function, let's call it drawMessage. It'll handle all the text stuff, but when it's time for the stars, it doesn't try to draw them itself. No way. Instead, it just calls our drawStars function. It basically delegates the task. And that right there is our official definition. A helper function is just a function you write to help another function do its job. In our little world here, drawStars is the helper. You can think of drawMessage as the manager and drawStars as the specialist it calls on to get a very specific task done right.
Okay, next section, passing notes between functions. Now that we're all organized, let's make these functions way more flexible and a lot more powerful.
So this is great and all, but right now, our stars show up in the exact same spot every single time. That's not very exciting, is it? What if we want to draw our message and stars anywhere we want on the screen? How do we tell our functions where to do their work?
We do it with parameters. Think of parameters like little notes or instructions that you pass to your functions. Before, our functions had empty parentheses, no instructions, so they always did the same exact thing. Now, we're adding x and y so we can give them coordinates.
And here is how the new setup works. Our manager function, drawMessage, now accepts x and y coordinates. It uses them, and, this is the really important part, it then passes those same coordinates along to its helper, drawStars. This makes sure the stars are drawn in exactly the right place.
Let's just trace how that information flows, okay? It starts when our main code calls drawMessage, and it hands it the coordinates 150, 150. drawMessage does its thing, and then, when it's time, it passes those exact same coordinates down the line to drawStars. The instructions just flow from the manager to the specialist. It's a perfect little chain of command. Okay, moving on to section 4, making code interactive. We've organized our code, now let's actually connect it to what the user is doing. This is where the magic happens. We can trigger this whole chain of function calls with an event, like a mouse click. The onMousePress function automatically knows the xMouse and mousey coordinates of the click. So we can just grab those and pass them straight into our drawMessage function, which then passes them to drawStars. And just like that, wherever you click, bam, the message and stars appear right there.
All right, let's talk about something important in section 5, a common coding trap. As you start using helper functions, there's one key rule you really need to know to avoid a super common mistake.
So you're probably thinking this, and it's a really logical question. It feels kind of redundant, right? drawMessage already has the x and y variables. Can't drawStars just, look over and see them? Why do we have to explicitly pass them along?
Well, let's see what happens if we try that. Here, we've changed drawStars so it doesn't accept any parameters, but it still tries to use the variables x and y. It really seems like this should work, but if you run this code, your program will crash hard.
And this is the error you're going to see, a name error. Python is basically telling you, hey, I'm inside the drawStars function right now, and I have absolutely no idea what x is. Nobody ever told me. And this happens because of a really important rule.
So listen up, because here it is. This is the golden rule. Every single function is its own isolated little world. It only knows about the parameters, the instructions that were passed directly to it. It can't see the parameters of the function that called it. So if a function needs information, you have to pass it that information. No shortcuts.
And that brings us to our last section, your new coding superpower,
because honestly, mastering this will completely change how you write code from now on.
So let's just recap the huge benefits here. By breaking your big problems into smaller pieces, your code becomes way more organized and easy to read. It also becomes reusable. You can just call draw stars from anywhere, which means you avoid all that messy copy pasting. And all this lets you build much bigger, cooler, more complex projects with confidence.
So I want you to think about that for a second. You're not just writing a long list of commands anymore. You're building a team of functions that work together. You're the manager now, delegating tasks to your specialist helpers. So the only question left is, what amazing thing are you going to build with them?